Hello, everybody. Welcome to the lunch table. My name's Evan. Today, I'm joined with just Nick. Today, we're going to be doing a NBA episode for you guys. I know we don't normally talk about the NBA, but the NBA playoffs are in full swing right now. We're in the Western and Eastern Conference Finals, and they've been pretty entertaining. So we're going to talk about them. But before we begin, make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoy, and to follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Lunch Table Takes. Without further ado, we'll dive right into this. We're kind of gonna go through majority of the playoffs to kind of get some storylines since we haven't really talked about it at all. Um, so first off, heading all the way back to the first round, it was a pretty good first round. A lot of great series, but one series that we want to hit is the Timberwolves Suns series. The Timberwolves swept the Suns in the first round, and we'll talk about the Timberwolves more later. But this series really showed the flaws um, in Phoenix. I mean, if you don't know, they have Devin Booker, Paul, Bradley Beal, and Kevin Durant. That's their big three, and they were projected to be finals contenders this offseason or this previous offseason. And they got bounced in the first round by a young Wolves team, and yeah, they're kind of got a lot of question marks. So, Nick, what are your thoughts on what the situation down there in Phoenix is, and what do you think they should
Um,
do to
yeah,
get
it
back?
was a very disappointing season for from the Suns' perspective. Obviously last year the trade deadline they traded for Kevin Durant, and everyone was like, "This team, if they stay healthy, should win the West." Um, and going into this season, they obviously fell short against Denver last year. They switched out Chris Paul for Bradley Beal, kind of a lateral move, truthfully. They both have absurd contracts. And everyone was like, this team should be like a top three team in the West again. Didn't quite come to fruition. Bradley Beal kind of underperformed. Kevin Durant was still Kevin Durant. Devin Booker wasn't like 2021 Devin Booker, but he hasn't been for a couple years now. But it all could have been done. They got the sixth seed. They were in the playoffs. They were playing a team that they beat in the regular season series wise, and then Minnesota came out and swept them. And we did not expect that at all. We both had Phoenix beating Minnesota in that series. Um, I did not expect. I thought Minnesota could win the series, but I didn't expect them to come out and just manhandle Phoenix from quite literally the first quarter of the first game. It was never a series. Um, and now, if you're Phoenix, you've got a lot of tough questions to ask. You went all in after you almost won the finals in 2021. It hasn't worked out. Your players aren't getting any younger. You don't have a ton of assets. And I think they're getting passed up in the West by numerous teams. Obviously, you got like the Thunder, the Timberwolves are more young, up and coming teams, but then you've got Dallas and Denver that are going deeper in the playoffs with their young stars that they have. Um, and the Suns are kind of just an aging team outside of Devin Booker. So truthfully, I think it's in their best interest to just blow it up, get whatever assets you can for Kevin Durant. Nah, you're probably not going to get a ton for Bradley Beal, but Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, and a few of their other guys, and just hit a full reset. I don't think Phoenix is going to do that, just because they went all in last offseason. I don't think they're just going to completely hit the reset button, but I think that they should. I don't think that this is a championship caliber team as of this current moment. So yeah, I didn't expect Phoenix to get swept at all. I think they should blow it up, and those are my thoughts on that series.
Yeah, I mean, after they went to the finals in what was that, 2021, everyone thought that this team was going to be a pretty good team in the West, and a title contender for the next couple of years. And then they went out and got Kevin Durant. We were like, oh yeah, well, they should be really good. And then they got Bradley Beal, and everyone was like, yeah, these guys are finals contenders. These guys are going to win it. And then like Nick said, they got swept to a team that they won the season series by, a super young team in the Timberwolves. And yeah, now there's a lot of question marks. You got Kevin Durant, who's 35 years old. You got Bradley Beal, who's 30. Booker's still young at 27. But like Nick said, you're tied, all your money is tied into three players, and then the rest are kind of just fill in guys. And so and they don't have any draft picks because they use those to trade for Kevin Durant and Bradley Beal. So you can't build through the draft and get young guys to help. And you really don't have enough cap flexibility to really upgrade your team how you want to. And obviously, it's been disappointing. I mean, that team getting the sixth seed and not really going anywhere in the playoffs since that 2021 finals appearance. And yeah, I would agree with you, Nick. I think it's probably in their best interest to blow it up, but I don't think they will. I think Matt Ishbia said that he believes that they're still contenders or whatever. But I mean, you got Kevin Durant, who's when healthy, still one of the best players in the world. He's 35, but you can still probably get decent assets back from him. I guarantee you, a team's going to want him. Bradley Beal, odds are you're not going to get a whole lot for him just because he probably has the worst contract in the NBA right now. But you can probably, like a team like the Magic, probably would take a chance on him maybe to kind of help bolster them. And then Devin Booker, that's the one that you can get a bunch of pieces from. But I don't really think they want to trade Devin Booker, and I don't think Devin Booker wants to leave Phoenix. I think Devin Booker wants to stay in Phoenix. But it is a business, and it might be in Phoenix's best interest to just kind of start from ground zero and do what they can. And they have the players to recuperate their draft picks, bring in young players, stuff like that. So they could kind of revamp that whole team if they think that window is close, which I don't think they do, but I think many people in the media believe it is, and I think it's closing if it's not closed already. So a lot of question marks in Phoenix. It's going to be really interesting to see what they do in the offseason, but they got a lot of question marks that they need to fill if they want to win a championship, which is what they believe that they have
Yeah.
the roster for.
And in the Timberwolves series specifically, I mean, Devin Booker, Kevin Durant still did their thing. Devin Booker averaged 27.5. Kevin Durant averaged 27, both on around 50% shooting. But after that, I mean, Bradley Beal averaged 16.5 points per game, but he only shot 44% from the field, which is like okay. And then after that, not a single other guy averaged more than 8 points per game in the series. I understand Minnesota's defense is proven. We're going to get to them here in a minute, but they're proving to be like all-time level good right now. But you need to have another guy come off the bench or another scorer that can come in and pick up the reins because Bradley Beal's not the Bradley Beal of like 2016, 2017, where he's almost a 30-point scorer. He's averaging less than 17 a game on below average shooting. That's not going to get it done. And obviously, the bad contract, you're not going to be able to really move off of him that easily. But yeah, they don't have a lot of depth, obviously. They traded all that away. Obviously, they traded Mikal Bridges away to get Kevin Durant. They traded away all their depth. They're in a tough spot right now. I'm going to be honest. They're in a tough spot. Yeah, I don't think their ceiling's very high anymore.
Well, another thing to consider is the new salary cap rules, where if you're over the luxury tax, it greatly limits what you can do trade wise, free agency wise, stuff like that. And I'm pretty sure they're over the luxury tax, I would imagine, with Beal, Booker, and KD's contract. So they might not be able to really do much to fix this team, honestly. They might just kind of have to run it back and hope that for the best, because I don't know with the new salary cap rules that they're going to even be able to make moves, which is another interesting piece to that as well. But yeah, lots of questions in Phoenix. But let's dive in here to these second round games. Wait, should we start in the West or the
I think
East?
we should just do Celtics Cavs because I
Okay,
think that's the one with the least amount of storylines.
fair. All right. Celtics Cavs. The Celtics 1-5, which was a surprise to none. The Celtics have just looked like the best team in the NBA for majority of this season. They swept their first round, right? No, they 1-5 in the first round. 1-5 in the second round as well in Cleveland. And yeah, I mean, Kristaps Porzingis, did he get hurt in the series or did he get hit in the first
I think he
series?
got hurt in the series against Miami.
Okay, so he didn't
Don't
play.
quote me on that.
Um, Either way, he didn't play in this series, or if he did, I don't not much. Um, and obviously, he's been a big contributor for them, and I think that he's the X factor too. If they can make the finals, if he's healthy, which hopefully he can get healthy by the finals if they do make it. But Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown were both phenomenal. Tatum had 25, 9, and 10 in the elimination game. Um, and they've gotten big contributions, obviously, by their bench. And Al Horford had a great series. Derek White had a great series. They're just such a deep team and a really good team. And on the other side, Cleveland, you have Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell, Jared Allen, and Evan Mobley. But for majority, I think Mitchell missed 2 games. He missed the last 2 games of the series. Allen missed pretty much the whole series. So for the majority of this series, it was just Mobley and Garland, and they did what they could. They won 1 game, but without your best player, there's really not much you can do. I'm pretty sure Donovan Mitchell had 50 and they still lost.
That was against
In like
Orlando.
game, oh, that's just Orlando.
Yeah, that was Game 6 against the Magic, but still, the
Yeah,
narrative still stands with that Cavs team.
yeah, and so yeah, like Nick said, it's basically like Donovan Mitchell and then everybody else. Um, which the team should be better because has been a good player. Mobley's a good defensive big, and he can score as well. Allen's one of the better shot blockers, but for some reason this season they just haven't really clicked as well as you would hope. And obviously they went up against the juggernaut Celtics, but immediately after they lost, there was rumors everywhere. There was rumors that Jared Allen is going to get traded. There was rumors that Donovan Mitchell's going to ask out. There's rumors that if Donovan Mitchell resigns, Garland's going to ask out. The rumor mill just went crazy. They just fired their coach today, actually, JB Bickerstaff, which was probably that was we all saw that thought that was going to happen after they lost. But um, Cleveland's another team that's a lot of question marks. Donovan Mitchell's going to be free agent next year, and we don't really know what the ceiling of this team is. And it sounds like there's a lot of inner turmoil there that needs to get fixed, and they could be another candidate to just kind of blow it up. But yeah, Celtics dominated the Cavs. Cavs kind of got some question marks as well. So.
Yeah, the future of this Cavs team is going to be based around whether Donovan Mitchell stays or not. Next year is the last year of his contract. He becomes an unrestricted free agent in 2026-27, that offseason. And yeah, it just is going to depend on what Donovan Mitchell thinks this ceiling of this Cavs team is. I personally think if they're all healthy, this Cavs team could make a deep playoff run, like a conference finals, NBA finals appearance. Maybe we've seen crazier things happen. Um, like Evan Mobley's only 22, Donovan Mitchell's only 27, Garland's only 24. They don't really have a meaningful player the age of 30 or over. I mean, Marcus Morris is 34, but I mean, you can get no disrespect to Marcus Morris, but at this point in his career, you can get a ton of different guys that fill a similar role that he did on that team, kind of a veteran presence. But their oldest guy that made a difference in the series was Karis LeVert. He's 29. So I think the Cavs could really build a decent contender if they get a little bit better, a little bit more consistent shooting. I think that's their biggest need that they have, because outside of Donovan Mitchell, everyone else on that team is very inconsistent when it comes to scoring the basketball. So yeah, I think if they get active in this offseason, and they get a couple guys that are more consistent from the outside, they could really make a significant playoff run, because their defense is really, really good. Their defense is really good. But they lack that offensive consistency that you need to have to be a truly elite team. But yeah, it's going to depend on whether Donovan Mitchell stays or not. Obviously, you said he only played 3 games in this series, missed the last 2, but when he played, he averaged almost 32 a game. So he's at the peak of his powers. And yeah, it's going to be weird whether Donovan Mitchell stays or whether he leaves or not. On the Celtics side of things, they're just a juggernaut. I think I predicted the Cavs to get swept. They made it interesting there for about half a second after they won Game 2, and then Boston won Game 3 and 4. Game 4 was close, surprisingly, and then they won by 15 in Game 5 back in Boston. But yeah, I think this Cavs team needs to watch what Donovan Mitchell is going to do closely. I think if Donovan Mitchell does leave, they could also blow it up and try to build around Evan Mobley. I think they are in a better spot than Phoenix is because they do have a guy in Evan Mobley that can be a future franchise cornerstone in about 5 years. But it's going to take time to get the pieces that they need around him. And also he needs to improve offensively. He came into the league a couple years ago, was immediately a defensive terror, and we were like, okay, his finishing, his mid-range game, he could potentially shoot the three in a couple years. He still hasn't really improved on that at all. So he's going to need to improve on that if the Cavs are going to be contenders down the line. But I think right now it's going to depend on what Donovan Mitchell wants to do, and that's going to determine the future of that Cavs team. But the Celtics are a juggernaut. They're still playing for a reason. We'll talk about them, I think, in a little bit. But yeah.
Yeah, pretty much covered it all. All right, let's move to the West. Let's talk about this Thunder Mavs series. The Mavs won in 6. Nick, what are your thoughts on this series?
Yeah, I actually predicted this series perfect. I had the Mavs playing the Thunder in the second round. I had the Mavs beating the Thunder in 6. I said it would be a little bit of a reality check. I actually think the Thunder put up a much better fight in this series than I expected them to. I'm pulling up the series averages right now. Give me just a second. All right, we'll do this. Yeah, I actually thought the Thunder played pretty well. Obviously, they won Game 1 at home. Mavs took the next 2. Thunder won Game 4 on the road. Where the series was decided was Game 5 in Oklahoma City. Luka Doncic had a triple-double. PJ Washington was incredible in this series. He shot over like 50% from 3. He was unbelievable. And with the Thunder, Shea did his thing. He's a superstar, obviously, finished second in MVP voting. He's going to be around for the foreseeable future. But for guys like Jalen Williams, Chet Holmgren, etc., they just haven't really tasted a playoff atmosphere, playoff team like Dallas had to offer. That's kind of where their luck ran out. They're going to be around for a long time. I will say this, they need to move off Josh Giddey ASAP. I think that Josh Giddey is a solid piece for a potential rebuilding team, like a Wizards or maybe a Pistons, although they already have Cade Cunningham. A team like that, maybe the Spurs with Victor Wembanyama, but he was atrocious in this series. I can't remember what game it was, but he was like a minus 20 on the floor in 11 minutes. And that was the reason that the Thunder lost the game, because they only lost by like 8 or 9 in that game. Josh Giddey was atrocious in this series. Take away all the off-field stuff. We're not going to get into that right now. In terms of just strictly as a player, he offered nothing. If you're not a very good three-point shooter and you're a liability defensively, you're not going to be of much use in a deep playoff run. And that's kind of just what you need to make a deep playoff run in today's NBA. You can't really have a guy like Josh Giddey being a liability defensively. On the Mavs side of things, though, Luka did his thing. Kyrie Irving has been the best thing to happen in this Mavs team in a long time. Their trade deadline, getting PJ Washington and Daniel Gafford, might go down as one of the best trade deadlines in NBA history, depending how the rest of this postseason goes. They completely changed the identity of that team. And that Game 6 comeback was something special. Coming down from down 17 in the second half, to win by 1 and advance to the Western Conference Finals. We're going to get into this a little bit. I think Dallas can make this series against the Timberwolves a lot closer than some people think that they can. But the Thunder are going to be around for a long time, obviously, with Sam Presti, what he's done. The Mavericks had a phenomenal series. It's kind of what I expected them to. And yeah, it was a great series, all things considered. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah. Yeah, great series. Yeah, the Thunder, I mean, nobody really expected them to be the one seed, really. I mean, with how young they are, and they went in and took care of business in the first round, and then in the second round up against a good Mavs team and just fell short. But I think this is a huge stepping stone for the Thunder. They got some playoff experience now. Like Nick said, team's still super young, led by Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, who is one of the best players in the league right now. Second in the MVP, had a phenomenal year. And then you still have guys like Jalen Williams, Chet Holmgren, Lou Dort. Did pretty well as anybody really can against Luka. He gave him some problems. But yeah, I mean, Josh Giddey, like you said, was atrocious. He's probably going to get traded this offseason, I would imagine, is what it's sounding like. Um, but yeah, I think the Thunder, like you said, they're going to be here for a long time, and I think with all the draft picks that they've accumulated and players and like good young players that they have, I think they could be a team that could go out and trade for another like superstar player to kind of push them over the edge. There's a lot of guys like Brandon Ingram, um, Paul George, like heck, maybe even Devin Booker, those types of guys. Trey Young, maybe like just guys who are disgruntled stars. That I mean, they're gonna have as enticing of an offer as anybody just because of picks, and you throw Giddy in there, somebody will probably take them. But yeah, Thunder played a good series. Like you said, Shea did his thing. He averaged 30. Jalen Williams, Chet Holmgren were both good. They got some good minutes from Isaiah Joe and Cason Wallace and other guys. But like you said, the Mavs with Luka and Kyrie, Kyrie's has kind of been like vintage Kyrie. We haven't really seen this version of Kyrie in a while, but he's been playing really well in the playoffs. Luka's gonna do his thing. I think I saw something he like is one of the leading scorers in like playoffs or something. He's just an absolute beast. But yeah, like you said, the trade deadline really changed the trajectory of this team. They were like an okay team, and then they traded for PJ Washington, Daniel Gafford, and those two players have been huge in the playoffs. PJ Washington had a great series. He was the reason why they won a bunch of these games. And yeah, the team just fits better with around Luka than it did before. Um, and I mean, yeah, the Mavs are a good team. They're like we'll talk about it in a minute, but they're going up against the Timberwolves, which that's going to be a great series. But I think it's just interesting that I mean Luka was banged up this whole series. He had like a back issue, ankle issue, shoulder issue, and he played through it, and he still played phenomenal, which shows his toughness. And I think the Mavs are another one of those teams that are probably going to be here for a while as long as they have Luka, just because of how much of a superstar he is. But Thunder in a great spot. They kind of overachieved this year. They shouldn't hang their heads on their season. The Mavs are going to their second conference finals in the last 4 years. So yeah.
Yeah, I when you said the Thunder might be able to trade for some stars, I actually think that's the wrong move for them. They've already got a superstar in Shea. They already have one of the best defensive big men in the league in Chet Holmgren. He's only 21. Jalen Williams is 22. They've already got like the best young core in the league. If they get a few like elite role players, like I actually love them getting Brandon Ingram. I think that'd be perfect for him. I think a guy like Alex Caruso would be phenomenal for them as well. As a Bulls fan, I don't obviously want him to leave Chicago, but it's going to happen at some point. The Bulls aren't going anywhere in the near future. I think they might have to overpay a little bit, but they have the draft capital to do it. So if they want to make a big swing, I think A, this is the offseason to do it, and I think B, I think just surrounding them with elite role players more so than trying to get a disgruntled star from another team is actually the move to go. Because then they can keep that core around a lot longer than they would have otherwise been able to had they traded for a guy like Devin Booker, who already has a massive contract. Because they're going to have to pay Shea. They're going to have to give him a blank check eventually.
Yeah,
And when that happens, a guy like Jalen Williams might have to get cut. So
that's fair. My thing is just they have so many draft picks throughout the next like 6, 7 years, and you can only have so many players on your team. So if they don't move those picks, they're just going to be reusing players constantly. And I think you got to do something with them. So you might not trade for a star, but like your Brandon Ingram or like you said, Caruso, like do something with the picks
yeah,
rather than just continuously drafting young players and just continuing to have one of the best young cores. Like at some point, you got to take a leap and not just stockpile on draft picks. So I think they, I think they should move their draft picks, but yeah, I get what you're saying. You don't want to bring another super expensive kind of ego into that team because that team's really tight knit and they have a good group, and you don't really want to ruin that chemistry. So yeah, that makes sense. But I just think they just need to move some of their picks just so they're not like it's not like the starting five and then the bench is like new every single year because they have 2 to 3 picks every year. But I trust Sam Press to go figure it out. But the Thunder are going to be really good. All right, let's move back to the East. Talk about this Pacers Knicks series. The Pacers won in 7. This was an amazing series. The Knicks are like good again, which is surprising. Um, and I mean, led by Jalen Brunson, who has just had a phenomenal year. He was one of the best playoff performers this year. Um, Let me pull up his stats for the
he
series.
averaged 29, 2, 6, and he had a steal a game. Those are his
Yeah,
stats.
he's been he's been pretty good, or he's been a beast. Dante DiVincenzo, he averaged 18 in the playoffs. OG Anunoby, when healthy, he averaged 15, but he was hurt down the stretch. Um, and then you had big performances by guys like Josh Hart, Miles McBride, Isaiah Hartenstein. This Knicks team was just deep, gritty, defensive first team led by Jalen Brunson, which is exactly the type of team that Tom Thibodeau loves and does well with. And they were a fun team to watch, and I think they got a good future down there too. Because I mean, Brunson is a phenomenal player, and obviously it's New York, so they're always a free agency destination. So, and I mean, the only thing that derailed them was just injuries. They had a lot of injuries kind of pile up at the wrong time. Brunson fractured his hand in that last game. Josh Hart had like a rib injury. Um, OG Anunoby pulled his hamstring. Julius Randle was already out for the year. So a lot of key guys just got hurt down the stretch. But um, for the next man, phenomenal season. They played really well, and they just went up against a Pacer team who's a young team, but is plays at a super fast pace, likes to push the ball, and shot the lights out. Honestly, they've been hot recently. Just one of those teams that kind of got hot at the right time. Took down the Bucks and now the Knicks, the 2 and 3 seed, and now they're in the conference finals against the Celtics, and they're just shooting phenomenal. I think in game 7, I think they shot like
They
70% from the
shot
field or something.
67% from the field as a team in
Yeah,
game 7. That is, I think
which
they
is
like set an
nuts.
NBA playoff record for
Yeah,
highest
it is
shooting
a record,
percentage by a team in a
which
playoff
is
game.
nuts. Yeah. So they've just been shooting off the charts. Um, Tyrese Halliburton has been their catalyst all season. But they've gotten huge. Pascal Siakam's had a great playoffs. He's been a great number 2. That trade is looking really, really good for them. He's been really good. And then you got Miles Turner, who is shooting like 30 or 40% from the three this playoffs. He's been a really good stretch 5. And then you got like the role players. Andrew Nembhard's been phenomenal. TJ McConnell's been a spark plug off the bench. Um, Guys like that. They're another one of those teams that's just super deep, and they're led by a couple of stars, and um, they're they play at a fast pace, which makes defenses kind of struggle. And we both predicted that they were going to beat the Bucks, right?
I had them beating the Bucks. Yeah, I
Yeah,
think you
I
won.
think I did. I did too. Um, and yeah, I mean they're a good young team, and they're in the conference finals now, and they definitely deserve it. But that Knicks Pacers series was a great series. I watched every single one of those games. It was fun games the whole time. And the Knicks playoff run as a whole was awesome. I mean, the Philly series was great. And just really good basketball.
Yeah, this series was fantastic from start to finish. I love seeing when two different styles of team clash against each other. Like you said, obviously the Pacers kind of play basketball like a track meet. They want to get up and down the floor as fast as they can, shoot the lights out, get as many shots up, and then on the Knicks side, they're more of a gritty, defensive, slow the game down, got one star and everyone else chips in type of team. Yeah, for the Knicks, injuries just piled up down the stretch at the wrong time. If they were healthy, they probably win this series. But, I mean, everyone's going to say, oh, the only reason the Pacers won Game 7 is because Jalen Brunson fractured his hand. They shot 67% as a team.
Yeah, they weren't stopping him.
Even if Jalen Brunson plays the rest of that Game 7, I don't think the Knicks beat them. The Pacers could not miss a shot. And the thing that impresses me the most about this Pacers team is they had 6 guys, Tyrese Halliburton, Pascal Siakam, Miles Turner, Andrew Nembhard, TJ McConnell, Aaron Nesmith, all averaged over 10 a game. And then Obi Toppin, shout out UD legend Obi Toppin, averaged 9.9 points a game. So they had basically 7 guys average double figures per game in this series against like one of the best defensive teams in the NBA. That is absurd.
Yeah.
That is ridiculous. Miles Turner shot 48% from 3. Andrew Nembhard shot 53% from 3. Like they shot the lights out, especially at home. And then in that Game 7, obviously. So yeah, I did not. I think I had the Knicks beating them in 6. I did not think this Pacers team was this good at shooting the basketball. I knew they could score a bunch, but I thought it was more due with how they played as a team more so than, oh my lord, these guys know how to put the ball in the basket. On the Knicks side of things, I think if you're a Knicks fan, obviously a disappointing way to end the season, but I think you got to be happy with this team's progression. Obviously, like you said, they're in New York. They're going to be a free agency destination. Jalen Brunson's probably going to be their guy for the next 5 or so years, I would say. Dante DiVincenzo averaged 22 a game. OG Anunoby, like you said, when he played, averaged 15 a game, but he got hurt down the stretch. Josh Hart. I've never seen a team attack the offensive glass like this Knicks team did. Like, it was absurd. In the fourth quarter of every single game I watched from them this season, they got, like, at least 8 offensive rebounds. It was ridiculous. But, yeah, injuries just piled up for them down the stretch. And then they played a team that shot the lights out of the basketball. It's just kind of unlucky. There's not a whole lot you can do about that. Great series, though. Definitely made for entertaining viewing, especially that Andrew Nembhard shot at the end of Game 3, where he shot it from like 40 feet out and nailed it to win the game. That was absurd. But yeah, I think if you're a Pacers fan, you're ecstatic. Obviously, if you're a Knicks fan, disappointing way to end the season, but I don't think it's all bad for him.
Absolutely. All right, let's wrap up the second round with the best series and the second round, the Nuggets and the Timberwolves. The Timberwolves beat the Nuggets, the reigning champs, in 7. Nick, give us your thoughts.
This series, after about game 3 of the Lakers Nuggets series, I was like, this Timberwolves Nuggets series is going to be all-time viewing. Like, it's gonna be must-see TV, and it exceeded every single expectation I had for it. This series was phenomenal. It was phenomenal from the first game. Minnesota goes in there, win games 1, then Minnesota goes to Denver, embarrasses the Nuggets in game 2. You think the series is over. Denver comes back, says we can do that too to Minnesota in game 3, and then Nikola Jokic put up 2 straight unbelievable performances in game 4 and game 5. He had a historic game 5, a 40-point performance from him. And then you're like, oh, this series is over. Denver's figured it out. And then Minnesota comes back in game 6, and one of the biggest, like, playoff blowouts I've ever seen, especially in a game that meaningful with teams that are that good. A 45-point win in Game 6 is absurd. And then obviously Minnesota comes back from 20 points down in the second half to beat the Nuggets in Game 7 after Jamal Murray dropped 35. It was unbelievable. It was a phenomenal series. Anthony Edwards, this whole postseason has just risen to like a top 3 player in the league. Karl Anthony Towns is having a career resurgence. Jaden McDaniels, Naz Reid, Mike Conley, Rudy Gobert all deserve flowers. It was just a phenomenal series, all things considered. And Minnesota's relevant again for the first time in 20 years. I think for the Denver side of things, they didn't have the depth that they had last year. Like losing out on Jeff Green really hurt them in terms of just a consistent, solid minutes off the bench. And I also think they just played much tougher competition this time around than they did last year. Jamal Murray was more inconsistent than he was last postseason. Jokic still did his thing, but overall, the rest of the guys kind of just didn't play as well as they did last year. And they played a team that has arguably the best defense in the NBA in the Minnesota Timberwolves. Didn't quite work out for the Nuggets that way. But that's why it's hard. It's hard to win championships in professional sports. That's why what LeBron did back, like, I can't believe I'm saying this, but throughout the 2010s was so unbelievably impressive. That's why Michael Jordan doing what he did in the 90s was so impressive. It's hard to win championships. It's even harder to repeat as champions. I thought Denver was going to repeat as champions. I was wrong. It's hard. And that's why whenever one of your teams is in that position to maybe win a title, you got to take every opportunity that you can to get over that hump, because you never know if you're going to get back to that spot. And Denver still should be an elite team. Obviously, Jokic is only 28, Jamal Murray's 26, Aaron Gordon's 28, MPJ's 25. But they need more depth on the bench. They need another guy like Jeff Green. Maybe Christian Brown can blossom kind of into that role. And they just need to be more consistent. But hats off to the Minnesota Timberwolves. Phenomenal series from them. Phenomenal series, all things considered. Yeah, those are my thoughts on it.
Yeah, like you said, it is crazy kind of thinking now. LeBron made 8 straight finals appearances. Like, that is, I feel like we kind of took that for granted when that was happening. But like now looking back on it, it's like, holy crap, dude, he made 8 straight finals. But the Nuggets continue the streak of NBA champions losing in the second round. The NBA, the champion has lost in the second
They
round.
haven't made it past the second round.
Haven't made it past the second round in the last 5 years. And the Nuggets do that again. But yeah, like you said, Nick, I mean, if Jokic wasn't the best player in the world already, I think this kind of solidifies it. I mean, third MVP, he averaged basically 30 a game.
Yeah, he averaged 29, 11.
29, yeah, which is ridiculous. And then, yeah, like you said, first 2 games were like, oh, Denver's done. Minnesota's actually legit. And then Denver comes back and it's like, well, we can do this too. And we're like, oh, shoot, we got a series. And then, yeah, like you said, Jokic went nuts game 4, game 5. And we're like, well, dang, Denver will really let this one slip away. And then they came back. Ant was like, hey, I'll see you guys back for game 7. And he did that. And they were down 20. And they came back and won in a phenomenal fashion. And now the Timberwolves are in the Western Conference Finals for the first time since Kevin Garnett in 2004. But yeah, I'll start with the Nuggets. Like I said, Jokic, phenomenal. Can't blame him. Murray, stat wise, had a good series. But if you look, first game was solid. Shot 43% from the field, 17 points. But then game 2, 17% from the field, 8 points.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. That was,
he was
game
just bad.
2 and game 6, he was awful.
Yeah, game 2 and game 6, he was terrible. And both of those were blowout losses. And then, speaking of terrible, Michael Porter Jr. couldn't hit the side of a barn. He was awful. He shot 25% in game seven, 33% in game six, 20% in game five, 50% in game four, but he only had 4 points. He was good in game three, and then he shot 33% in game two. And so that's not going to get that done as your third best scoring option. That's not going to get it done for a team, like you said, that now lacks depth without Jeff Green, Bruce Brown, guys like that, who were crucial players for their championship run last year. And a big reason why they won last year is because Murray was hot for the whole, pretty much the whole time. And obviously they had Jokic, and Porter was great shooter, but Porter really struggled. Murray struggled at times, so it's kind of just all on Jokic. And shout out to Karl-Anthony Towns. He, for years, has been okay. This guy is a great center, probably one of the best centers in the league, but he can shoot threes really well, but he can't really play defense. He played phenomenal against Jokic, as best as anybody really can, honestly. Because if we're being honest, Rudy Gobert was
Rudy
getting
Gobert got
cooked.
cooked numerous
He was
times against
getting,
Nikola
yeah,
Jokic.
like 4-time defensive player of the year was getting cooked. And Cat came in there, and what he did game seven was phenomenal. He played great defense down the stretch in game seven to really kind of throw Jokic off his game. And I think that's, like you said, Minnesota's been one of the best defensive teams, if not the best. I don't know or not, um, but like with Jaden Daniels, he's
Jaden
probably a
Daniels.
top, yeah.
You said Jaden
Uh,
Daniels as in the
Sorry,
quarterback.
that's the Commanders quarterback. I'm probably gonna mess that up so many times. Jaden McDaniels. Um, he's probably a top five perimeter defender in the league. Super long, lengthy guy. He played really well against Porter and Murray at times, and Ant can guard as well. But I think, like you said, this playoffs really just unlocked the stardom of Anthony Edwards. Every time you look at Instagram or turn on ESPN or whatever, they're talking about Ant. They're talking about Ant, which is well deserved. He's a great guy. He's hilarious. He kind of brings that old school, like he doesn't take crap. He talks his talk, he walks his walk. He's not afraid to say anything. Like he literally said, um, I'll see you guys in game seven, and came back.
He didn't say you guys, but
Yeah,
for
he
the
said
sake of the
other words
podcast, he said
that I
yeah.
can't say. Um, and I mean, then he blew them up by like 50 or 40 or whatever it was, and then saw him in game seven. Um, and yeah, he's just phenomenal player. He averaged 28 this series. He was just so good. Cat averaged 18 and 9. Like I said, Jay McDaniels, Rudy Gobert. But the three-headed monster at center that they have with Naz Reid, Rudy Gobert, and Cat is ridiculous. Naz Reid's basically a guard that's 6'10". Then you have defensive anchor Rudy Gobert, four-time defensive player of the year, and then Cat, who is one of the best shooting bigs in the league. And they just continue, and all three of them play good defense. Like Naz Reid came in there that game seven, played phenomenal minutes down the stretch. This team's just deep, and there's a big reason why a lot of people think that they can make the finals. Um, but I think one player that that doesn't get a lot of hype, but I think should be mentioned is Mike Conley. He was out for I think one game, but when he came back, he completely opened up that offense for Ant because they were just doubling Ant, and he couldn't really kick it out to anybody. But with Conley's such a good shooter, good playmaker. He can kind of relieve some of that pressure off of Ant. And it was funny. They were talking about how difficult it is to make the Western Conference Finals, and they're like, hey, like, how does it feel knowing that like you guys haven't like the Timberwolves haven't been here in 20 years? He's like, well, I made the Western Conference Finals with the Grizzlies. That was like 13 years ago,
Yeah.
which that doesn't even seem that long ago that he was with the Grizzlies. But it's like you said, it's so hard to win championships in professional sports. And yeah, this Minnesota team is so fun to watch. And the like you said, the that series was an all time series. We're gonna look back at that series as some great basketball, some great moments by both the Nuggets and the Timberwolves. And but yeah, great series. The Timberwolves kind of shocked a lot of people, even though I guess they were 2 seed, but I don't think a lot of people really thought that they were going to win that
Yeah,
series, and
everyone
they
was
came
like,
out and
okay,
did.
cute, you're playing the Nuggets. Are you really going to
Yeah.
beat them? Although I will say, I did say that if the Timberwolves played the Nuggets, the Timberwolves could give them real problems because
Well,
they're the only other team that has interior size in the West.
yeah. Well, the general manager of the Timberwolves was the general manager of the Nuggets, so he kind of created this team um to be able to beat the Nuggets. He kind of created them as like the antivirus for the for the Nuggets. So, and like you saw, like you said, I think most of that is just like you said, the physicality in their big rotation, because you gotta stop Jokic as best you can, and I think Cat being a bigger body definitely kind of threw him off because Jokic is used to just kind of being the biggest guy out there, but Cat being a little bit of a bigger body, that's probably why he was more effective than Gobert was, just because Gobert is just really long
Yeah,
and
Gobert's more
um,
lanky than like
mhm.
tanky, and Cat's kind of got that
Yeah,
girth to him. Pause, but he's a
yeah,
larger dude.
yeah. But phenomenal series. Um, Honestly, this playoffs as a whole has been pretty
Yeah,
good.
these NBA
I've been,
playoffs have been some of the best in a long time.
yeah.
Like I would
This
say at
last
least
couple of years has been
2021.
kind of, yeah. And that leads us into the conference finals, which we're talking in a second. But um, this will be the third or fourth straight year we get a new champion, I think.
I think it's like fifth.
Because you
I think it's
had,
like fifth because you had the Raptors
yeah,
in
I think
2019, the Lakers in
Lakers,
2020, the
Warriors,
Bucks in
Bucks.
2021, the Warriors, and the
Yeah, this is
Nuggets.
like the
This is going to be
sixth.
6 years in a row that we
Yeah,
have a different
so
champion.
um, yeah, which is good.
The era of
And one of like
parity.
the yeah, which everybody wanted it because there was a stretch where it was Cavs, Warriors for 6 years. It felt like. Um, but now one of like the blossoming young stars is going to win in their first championship. Is it going to be Luca? Is it going to be Tyrese Halliburton? Is it going to be Ant, or is it going to be Jason Tatum? So conference finals are good. They're going to be great series. The first games have already wrapped up. Um,
But
we
what
should probably
first games they were though? Holy crap!
yeah. Which one should we start with?
Um, I
Both of
we'll
them were
do
phenomenal.
Celtics Pacers first because they're playing right now as we're recording this.
They are. They're down. The Celtics are up at halftime.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, Celtics
Um,
are up 13 right now.
what to say about this game? The Celtics won 133 to 128 in overtime. And this is one that the Pacers really just let slip away. They were the better team the entire game, and they were playing really well, obviously. And again, they shot pretty well. They shot 53% from the field, 37% from three as a team. Pascal Siakam had 24, Halliburton had 25. They had 7 players in double figures again. They're playing great. And then the last like minute, they the Celtics hit an inbound steal. They get the ball. They throw it to Jaylen Brown in the corner with like 5 seconds left. He hits a three, and then the Pacers aren't able to get a shot off. And then you go to overtime, and then Jason Tatum stepped up, had 10 points in overtime, put the game away. And if I'm the Pacers, I feel like that's just a demoralizing loss to go into the Celtics home and be the better team and kind of, I mean, yes, the score was close, but watching the game, you felt like the Pacers were the better team the whole game, pretty much, except the very first like 2 or 3 minutes when the Celtics went off to like a 12-0 run. But after that, they kind of settled in and they played really well. And it's always tough to win on the road in the playoffs, and especially against a one seed and such a great team like the Celtics. You won all those games mean so much, and I think to throw that game away and to let that one slip through your fingers is really going to hurt them, because you think you come in now in this game, you're up 1-0, you go back, you lose this game, you go back to your home up 1-1 or tied 1-1. The pressure is not as bad as it is now. You're down 2-0 potentially. Um, and now you're kind of looking on the outside, looking in against a team um like the Celtics, who are just phenomenal on all facets of the game. You go down 2-0 is pretty tough to get back from. And they haven't really wasted a lot of playoff games this year, winning both their series in five. So I think that's going to be a tough loss for them. Um, but I think it's still going to be a heck of a series. But I think that loss is could bite them pretty bad, just because they had it and literally let it slip through their finger.
Yeah, if you're like, I think you saying it's a demoralizing loss is the perfect way to put it. Because if you're the Pacers going into the series, you know you have to take one in Boston. You have to take at least one in Boston in order to win this series because you only get 3 games at home. You like you said, you had it. You're up 3 with like 11 seconds left. All you have to do is inbound the ball, hit one free throw, it's game over. You know what I'm saying? And the thing is, they had timeouts. Like Tyrese Halliburton, you had timeouts. You didn't have to inbound it right then and there. I get he's only 23, but I'm like, that was an all-time level like choke there from the Pacers. And also Pascal Siakam. This is a little more defensible because I get you're not really trying to foul on a 3-point shot, but you gotta at least contest. Like, you're in Jaylen Brown's space, but you gotta at least get a hand up, especially when you have a size advantage like Siakam does. Yeah, it was a great shot by Jaylen Brown. The Celtics got bailed out in game 1. I do still think the Celtics are a better team, but on the Pacers side of things, like, you just gotta, like, they're obviously gonna say, like, oh yeah, we're good, it's just one game, it's a long series, yada, yada, yada. But in terms of like a morale perspective, losing that game really hurts because you had it and you know you have to win one in Boston, and that could have been the one. You got everything you could have asked for the first 47 minutes of the game. All of your role players stepped up and contributed phenomenally. Tyrese Halliburton, Pascal Siakam, elite games. Jason Tatum wasn't that great to the first 3 quarters. He was still good, but he wasn't like the top 5 player in the league. He didn't just take over the game until overtime. So yeah, I think that game was really disheartening to see, because I think a lot of people would like to see the Pacers, in the finals. I think a Pacers Timberwolves series would be really fun, or a Pacers Mavericks series for that matter. But yeah, that loss, that's a hard pill to swallow, man. You had it in your grasp. And then overtime, the Celtics were just the better, more deep team. Shout out Drew Holiday, by the way, for having, I think it was 28 points. This is what I'm talking about.
And he made Halliburton turn the ball over way more than he usually does. Like, off of, like, he just, like, would kick it off his foot half the time.
Yeah.
Which is uncharacteristic for him.
Yeah, Drew Holiday had 28 points. Jason Tatum, 36. Holiday, 28. Jaylen Brown, 26. Horford and Derek White both had 15. Like, this is what I'm talking about with Boston. Boston has genuinely 6 or 7 guys that can erupt for 25 points on any given night. Like, that is the thing with this team. Everyone's like, oh, Jason Tatum, he's not that great in the playoffs. He doesn't need to be, because look at the team he has. He's got, like, on paper, one of the most deep teams ever assembled. Like, it's up there with the KD Warriors in terms of offensive efficiency. Part of that's because they play the game a little faster now, but that's a different conversation for a different day. They're elite, historically elite, in terms of offensive production. In terms of this series as a whole, I actually think this is going to be a closer series than people give it credit for. The Pacers do play very similarly to the Celtics. They both kind of are just run and gun, deep teams, but I mean the Celtics are just way, way better defensively, even without Porzingis, which he's not like a great defensive center or anything, but they're just way better defensively. Are we giving series predictions for this?
We'll do that after we talk about the Mavs game. Right. Yeah, I mean, that kind of, what you said kind of ties into our Thunder conversation. I mean, if you're the Thunder, this is slightly off topic, but if you're the Thunder, you're trying to build your team how the Celtics have it. I mean, they're all homegrown, like how the Thunder will probably be. They have 2 stars in Brown and Tatum who work very well together. And then you have just elite level role players all around, like you said, who can drop 20 any day. And takes the pressure off of Tatum and Brown a lot to like just have to carry. So I think like if you're the Thunder, you're looking at the model of the Celtics and you're trying to copy that to a T. Um,
You
but
even
yeah, let's.
you even have the fleece of a trade in there with the Shea and the Paul
Oh
George
yeah,
trade, like the Celtics had when they
yeah.
traded with the Nets of like a decade ago.
Which
It's like the exact same situation.
that could go down as a worse
It
trade
not
than
could. It
that
already
one did.
is. It's
Yeah, it's
already
pretty
so
bad.
terrible.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. All right, let's move to the West. Another great game. The Mavs beat the Timberwolves 108 to 105. Luca hit a dagger, like step back midi, with like 40 seconds left to kind of ice the game. Um, but I mentioned vintage Kyrie earlier. This was vintage Kyrie. 30 points. Again, Luca had 33, 6, and 8. 13 from PJ Washington, 10 from Gafford. But I mean, in the first half, Kyrie was just unstoppable. There's nothing you could do to stop him. He was. Ant was like, "Yeah, I want to guard Kyrie. I can guard him." And Kyrie's like, "Yeah, no, you can't, buddy."
We'll see. He was
Um,
like, "We'll see about that."
yeah, and then he was like, "Yeah, you can." But um, the Timberwolves, they were leading for a decent amount of this game, but um, I mean, the duo of Luca and Kyrie combined for 63 points, which is over 50% of their points. And then on the Timberwolves side, you had a good game from Jay McDaniels. He had 24, 16 for Cat, but he didn't shoot the greatest. 12 and 7 for Gobert. Ant had 19, 8, and 11. Nas had 15. Slow-Mo had 11, which he usually doesn't do much. But yeah, the Mavs come in, steal a game at home against Minnesota, and now that kind of that could shift the series a little bit. Because I think a lot of people kind of like how they are viewing the Pacers. Didn't really give the Mavs much of a shot in this series because of all the hype the Timberwolves are getting. But I think we're set to have two great conference final series, um, and yeah, the Mavs stole this one. But if you're the Timberwolves, you're fine.
Yeah,
You just got
this is
you just
like
gotta
it's a
win tomorrow,
series. Yeah,
and then yeah, it's not as demoralizing as you had it and you lost it. It was just hats off to Kyrie and Luka, man. There's only so much you can do against those guys. We just got to go back to the drawing board and try to finish the game better next time, and hope. Now, if you go down 2-0, then we have some issues, but they were, yeah. So good first game.
yeah. Phenomenal first game. The first half of this game, Minnesota came out guns a blazing. Jay McDaniels was red hot. And then it was just offensive rebounds, and Kyrie Irving kept Dallas in the game. It was kind of like a boxing match where Minnesota would have a jab, and then Dallas and Kyrie would throw a jab back, and it was super close for a lot of the game. Luka was really, I'm not going to say a non-factor because he's Luka Doncic, but Luka wasn't really like, he didn't have, it was more Kyrie for the first 3 quarters, and then the fourth quarter came around and Luka just took over. Like if you like franchise cornerstones, that's what they do. Like when it gets to crunch time, when it gets to all right, sit up and try time, you got to have a guy that can just take over a game, and Luka Doncic can take over a game almost better than anyone in the NBA right now. On the Timberwolves side of things, it was a I mean, you got what you wanted for most of your guys. I don't know why I can't find this. Okay, here we go. I mean, yeah, Jay McDaniels had 24. Rudy Gobert had 12 and 7. Cat had 16, although he didn't shoot the ball well. Naz Reid had 15 off the bench. Kyle Anderson was in double figures. I'm not going to say Anthony Edwards played bad because, I mean, he had 19 points, 11 rebounds, 8 assists, but you would like him to score the basketball more. If there's one knock on Anthony Edwards, is that his scoring is a little inconsistent, but he is only 22. That's only going to get better. But as of right now, he is a little bit inconsistent scoring-wise. Dallas took advantage of a Timberwolves team that I think was riding the high of beating Denver in Denver, as all teams would. And they reminded everyone, like, hey, we're here for a reason, too. We've got a superstar in Luka Doncic. We've got Kyrie Irving. That's all. I mean, if you've been watching the NBA as long as we have, that's all you really need to say. And
If you
yeah,
watched the NBA for the last decade,
yeah. I mean, Kyrie Irving, that was just a breath of fresh air, truly. Here's the thing about Kyrie. Kyrie, fair or not, needs to be in the right headspace to be like the Kyrie Irving that we know and love from Cleveland and his early days in Boston. In Brooklyn and like late in Boston, I don't think he was really in a right headspace mentally. And he's openly come out and he's been like, I wasn't like all there in later in Boston and in Brooklyn. But now I think Mark Cuban cares about this Mavericks team a lot more than a lot of other owners do. And he treats his players well. He gives them everything they need. I think Kyrie is finally in a place where he's happy and where he's content. And when he's content, he's terrifying. He's terrifying to play against. He just took over the game in the first half. We've said it a few times now, but that first half from him was unbelievable. I felt like I was watching like early Cavs days Kyrie Irving. It was unbelievable. Yeah, it was a phenomenal series, and like you said, that Luka step back. I think it was over Cat too. It was either over Cat or Gobert. It was a really tough shot. That was a dagger, put him up 2 possessions with less than a minute left. Mavs hit their free throws, stole one in Minnesota. I think I said earlier that I think Dallas is a much better chance than people are giving them credit for. I think this is going to be a phenomenal series from start to finish. And it's going to come down to whether Minnesota has enough in the tank or not after that grueling 7-game series against the defending champs. How much more do they have? And I mean, Dallas has had 2 6-game series. I mean, it's how much do they have left in the tank too? They played 2 really good teams in the Clippers and the Thunder. But yeah, it's going to be a great series. I think it's going to be which team has more to give at this stage in the postseason. That's usually how it is when you get this deep. But yeah, I think it's going to be a phenomenal series, all things considered. Those are my thoughts on Game 1.
All right, Nick. Now you can give your prediction.
Series predictions. All right. The Celtics are up by 6 at half against the Pacers. They're 57-51. I'll start with that series first. I think Boston's going to win in 5 again. But unlike the first 2 series, I think it's going to be a fantastic 5-game series. If that makes any sense. I think most of these games are going to be pretty close. I think Boston will take it tonight, and then Indiana will take Game 3, and then Boston, their stars will come through in Game 4, and that'll just kind of be the end of it. They go up 3-1 going back to Boston. It's kind of hard to come back from that. It's not impossible. I mean, LeBron did it against a 73-win team, but not to like throw that in there or anything.
They had LeBron.
They did have LeBron. They also had Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love. Mm-hmm. That series was so good, man. Like looking back on that we did not know what we had at the time.
All-time series.
Yeah. We did not know what we had at the time. I think if you ask me right now, I think Boston is going to win in 5. But I think it'll be a very close 5-game series. Like, you know, when people talk about the Nuggets-Lakers series last year when they were like, that was the closest sweep we've ever seen? I think it'll be something similar. I think it'll be like, this is a very, very close 5-game series. I think on the Timberwolves and Dallas side of things, I think it's going to go 7, truly. And in that case, I might shock some people. I think I'm going to take Dallas in 7. And the thing is, I trust Kyrie Irving and I trust Luka Doncic to be more consistent than Anthony Edwards and Cat. I just trust the consistency because, like, you know what you're going to get out of Daniel Gafford and Derek Lively and PJ Washington and company. They're going to do their roles. PJ Washington will average like 10 a game. And it's going to be whether Luka and Kyrie can kind of carry them offensively. But I truly think Kyrie is in a spot where he's going to have a phenomenal series. He needs to. PJ Washington needs to step up. Luka just needs to keep being Luka and hope that his injuries are not serious enough to derail his phenomenal postseason thus far. But I truly think the Dallas' trade deadline changed the trajectory of this team. I get Minnesota's got all the hype right now, but I trust Luka and Kyrie's consistency more than the Timberwolves right now. I think they're a bit more of a hot and cold team. That's why I'm going to take Dallas in 7. Might shock some people, but yeah.
Well, that could be like the Raptors in 2019, their trade deadline. They got a bunch of key pieces that helped them win the chip. So that could be the same thing with the Mavs. Um, all right, I'll start with the Pacers Celtics. I also think Celtics are going to win in five. I think if the Pacers were going to make this a series, they needed to win that game one, and I think like we've both mentioned, the Celtics are just so good, and I think this is when the youth of the Pacers will show, and the Celtics are just going to be too deep. Um, and like you said, they play similar styles, so it's not like the Knicks and the Pacers where it's two drastically different styles. They were roughly the same. So I'm going to give the edge to Boston, and they're going to kind of just bulldoze their way through the Eastern Conference and go to the finals. Their second finals in 3 years.
Yeah.
And then on the West, I also think it's going to go in seven, but I'm going to go with Minnesota. Mainly because I don't know how long I think Luca is obviously he's going to be good, but he's really banged up right now. I think he's like his knee, which is his biggest issue, got significantly worse um, during the last series, and it didn't get any better while he was like resting. So, not that he's not going to play; he's still going to play every single game. But I do feel like that's going to come into a hindrance playing a grueling 7 game series, getting guarded by Jaden Daniels and the Timberwolves, who are very physical, tenacious team. I think that's going to kind of wear on him a little bit. But I mean, I think it's going to be a phenomenal series. Both teams are amazing, but I'm going to give the edge to the Timberwolves, and Ant's going to go to his first finals at only 22 years
And
old.
the Timberwolves will make their first finals ever as a franchise.
Yeah. So it's you have a team going for ring number 18, or you have a team going for ring number one. All right. Who do you have winning the finals
NBA
between the
Finals.
Mavs and the Celtics?
Yeah, and NBA Finals. I think this is where the injuries for Dallas catch up to them.
Oh, I thought you were going to ride the Dallas train.
I'm not over Boston. I can't. Boston's they're so good. I hate saying this, but they're so unbelievably good. They're so unbelievably deep. I think that the only team in the NBA that has a better starting five than the Celtics do when they're fully healthy was Denver, and they're now out of the postseason. So I think that the Mavs will steal. I'll make to make it interesting. I'll say Celtics in 6 over Dallas, but I can't bet against Boston right now. They've only played 2 5-game series. I don't think the Eastern Conference Finals is going to be too long of a series either. They're going to be well rested, playing against either a team that's going to play 2 7-game series or a banged up Mavericks team. So yeah, I think that it'll be the Celtics over the Mavericks in 6 this season.
Yeah, I got Celtics Timberwolves. I'm also going to go Celtics in 6, but I do think it's going to be interesting, especially with the Timberwolves, because if Porzingis isn't playing for the first couple games of the series, that could definitely change. Because, like we've mentioned a lot, the bigs in Minnesota is their key, and I don't know if Al Horford can guard Cat, Nas Reed, or Gobert. So
He can guard Gobert. More to do with the fact that
yeah,
Gobert
he
isn't
can
really an
guard Gobert.
offensive center, but
Gobert can't really shoot outside of the restricted area,
unless
but
it's a fadeaway in the
um,
dying moments of Game 7.
which was probably the most impressive shot I've ever seen him make.
Yeah, that's true, actually.
Um, but yeah, I think it could be like how the Indiana Pacers series could have been, where I think they punch Boston in the mouth game one, could just if Porzingis doesn't play, and I think they have a really close game too. But I think the Celtics just can't. They're not going to get swept at home. They've been one of the best teams at home this year. They're not going to lose both games at home. And then if Porzingis comes back, then I think that's where um, Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown are just too good. They're too deep of a team. They've been here multiple times. This will be this, like I said, second time in 3 years. They've played in these high stake games so many times, and I think, like you said, the Timberwolves having back to back game sevens is going to wear on them, and I think the Celtics, if Porzingis plays and they continue to stay healthy, it's kind of just going to waltz to their 18th ring, and the Jason Tatum fraud narratives are going to change, and Ryan's going to be happy.
Yeah, so will Chase.
Yeah, so will Chase.
Yeah, and the Celtics have been knocking at the door for
genuinely
like
close.
6 years at this point. They made the Eastern Conference Finals when Jason Tatum was a rookie.
Mm-hmm.
Every single
I think
year
Jason Tatum's made 6 in the Eastern Conference Finals.
Yeah, because it was Celtics Cavs in 2018. It was Raptors. It was Raptors Bucks. So we didn't make the conference.
Oh, so we didn't make.
So, but yeah, since 2020 was Heat Celtics. 2021 was not 2021 either. It was Bucks Hawks in 2021.
Oh right, the Hawks.
But I mean, yeah, 4 out of the last 5 years. Like 2022 was Celtics Heat. 2023 was Celtics Heat. Now it's Celtics Pacers. Like.
Yeah, and then they just had to get rid of the Heat and the Warriors in the end.
Yeah, but they've been knocking at the door for a few years now. They have to. Like, if they don't win the finals this year, some difficult questions are going to need to be asked for that team.
Oh, yeah. Because they're by far the better team, and they're by far the best team in the NBA from top to bottom. And they don't really have many excuses. But I do like that, like, Ant, Luka, or Jason Tatum can kind of has a shot to win their first ring. I like that it's somebody new, and kind of like that new era of superstars is here, and I think we're getting it kickstarted with one of them winning their first ring, which I think is going to be really cool to see. But yeah, the NBA playoffs have been phenomenal. The Western and Eastern Conference Finals, I do not expect anything less. I think they're going to be great. They already are through the first 2 games, like you mentioned, and then I hope we're set for good finals. But NBA playoff time is always a good time. Kind of with the NFL slowing down and not really much else coming around the corner. NBA playoffs is where we're at, and it's a great time.
It was a great time.
Playoffs in any sport is really a great time. I've been watching some hockey playoffs.
Those have also been elite to watch.
Yeah. So it really, any playoffs is just
playoff time is just a good time for any.
Nothing beats playoff time.
It doesn't.
Yeah, that's going to wrap up this episode. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, make sure to like and subscribe. And we'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.